tournament versus what I want to run when I'm just grinding out for a PB. So it makes for really interesting strategy.
And our runners are about to start. They got the go sign in chat. We're just waiting for the restream to catch up.
And here we go.
Hold X to skip the opening cinematic real fast. Go ahead.
Well, the first thing we're doing right here is we're buying ourselves the mallet. It's our version of getting the hammer in this game with a different kind of randomness. But we use that to do an item swapping glitch that allows us to transform the hammer into an item called the Knight's Armor. We make 5 sets, 1 for each character to wear and 1 to sell immediately to kind of fund everything for the beginning of the run. Although it looks like Bruce is not... did he skip the item shop? Is he going for the items later?
And with this glitch, timing is everything, but consistency is hard to get. You only got a couple frames to pull it off. We're seeing rename buy stuff ahead. Where you buy your first items is also a fair indication of what route you're using. With Bruce not buying any potions or anything like that, it could be that he's going to try to use the Lustdagger Black Mage route, which waits until Provoca so it can pick up early ethers. Rename could be using the conventional Barbarian Sword route or the White Mage route, which doesn't require ethers until later in the game around Crescent Lake.
The big thing is you do need to make sure not to try to use Elfheim. A lot of people, when they first start playing the game, decide they want to do their early item shopping in Elfheim because you can also get the gold needles there, and they discover that you cannot buy Phoenix Downs in Elfheim. Right, and Bruce now is into the Chaos Shrine, and he's going to be going and picking up a leather hat. This leather cap is used to do another item glitch to get us an item called the Judgment Staff. I don't want to spoil it for anybody who hasn't seen this yet, but it's going to let us do something pretty cool here in the pirate battle coming up. You're going to see something kind of unexpected for a very early boss battle in a Final Fantasy game.
That's right, and even though the stats may look weak, it's still far better a weapon than anything you can pick up in this early in the game.
Yeah, it's from kind of a super dungeon, meant kind of to have a post-game, bonus item that you do not get in the normal playthrough of the game without going into the bonus. It's a very, very, very powerful, very late game item.
And a lot of these items we're going to be seeing ahead are those type items, either from the post-game that was added for the GBA release, and is also in here, or even for the PSP-specific bonus content after that.
Now, you may notice that Bruce got to the dire glitch screen first, but Rename actually defeated the boss first. And it might be time to mention the fact that this game has a very, very, very heavy RNG element in the random encounter. Both and when you get them, the number you get, and most importantly, the quality of those encounters. There can be plus or minus 5-10 minutes on a run pretty easily just based on the luck you get from random encounter.
Yes, if all you've ever played is the NES version, it is nothing like it when it comes to encounters. There's still certain encounters in certain areas, but there's no set encounter table, there's no set number of steps you need to take. It is completely random. As you're walking around, you build up threat, and eventually, once your threat hits a certain threshold, consistent with what's rolled by the game, you get an encounter.
And as far as I'm aware, that roll also is not step-based, but is, in fact, frame-based. So there's not really any way to manipulate it either.
It is reset by getting into encounters, or switching zones, like hopping into a town or a castle and back out again. So this cutscene here is largely unskippable. You just have to mash and hope you can get past the text boxes as quickly as you can, but as Rename's coming upon, the one that was the opening cutscene in the NES can be skipped if you mash X.
There are a number of cutscenes that do play in this game that kind of take you out of the game temporarily. Thus the opening cutscene, this bridge cutscene, there's one later for a dam explosion, and all of those can be skipped. But the in-game engine cutscenes cannot, but there's not many of them. It's kind of interesting. You first start playing this game, it's a remake. They've added a few cinematics here and there. They kind of did it at the beginning of the game, then it's kind of stopped for the most part. And you just get right back into the action. Very little time in this game is spent on story exposition.
Well, you do have the one after every theme.
Yes.
So as we're seeing, even though they're taking roughly the same route, similar route, they are running into different encounters. As I say that, they both run into crazy horses, but that was completely at random.
Alright, Rename is coming up on the pirate fight here, and this fight in the original NES game, a lot of people find it annoying because, you know, no matter what you do, it takes a long time to get rid of all these enemies. Let's see what we do here.
3 rounds minimum in vanilla NES because you're not going to have any kind of AoE that can hit them.
Yeah. What is that? Are they using the most powerful spell in the game right there?
Yep. Rename just dropped a nuke, or in this game, flare, on the pirates using that Judgment Staff.
And unlike all the other Final Fantasy games, in Final Fantasy 1, both the original and the PSP, and all the remakes, your items that can be used, like rods and staves, do not break when you use them. So we can now use, you know, kind of the in-game super spell as much as we want for free. That being said, we try not to use it. We hope that's the only time we use it in the game right there.
That's right, because while it is powerful, it also has a very long cast time compared to the rest of the spells these players are going to want to be using, whether or not they're on the White Mage or Black Mage routes. Barbarian Sword route is kind of stuck with flares, but even then they want to use as few of them as possible.
Yeah, Barbarian Sword route, in fact, does as little casting as possible because they only have that one very long animation. The other routes that have some other quicker spell items available to them will take advantage of those when there's 3 or 4 enemies pretty often. Whereas Barbarian Sword, if there's 4 enemies or less, most of the time people are going to attack.
And these aquatic enemies can be very tough to run from. You don't have any extra agility off of the knight armors, obviously. Your levels are very low, your luck's still pretty low, and even in vanilla NES, they're tough to run from with a good running group.
So Rename came in here to get some gold needles. These are for run safety, and he's also going to go ahead and get some potions there, looks like. Fill up on those.
Yeah, there is an Easter egg in Elfheim, but I doubt we're going to see it. It is, however, it is in this version, it's in GBA, and there's a different one in the NES version from before Squaresoft became Square Enix. These wolves can make or break an early run right here because they have a pretty high ambush rate, and even if you don't get ambushed, you have a tough time running from them unless you get a preemptive.
Personally, for me, this is one of my least favorite sections of the game right here. Just this force is just, it's always annoying. Even when it goes quick, it's annoying. But what we're doing in the game at this point, this game begins with a very long multi-stage fetch quest. Our goal is to go west into the greater game world on the sea. In order to do that, we need to get some nitro powder, get some dwarves to blow a hole open, blow open a natural dam so we can get out in the rest of the game world. To do that, we have to get an item called the Mystic Key. In order to get that, we have to wake up the prince who holds it using an item called the Jolt Tonic, which you can only get from a witch named Matoya by giving her her glass eye, which is held by an evil elf king named Astos, who will only reveal himself if you give him his magic crown, which we are about to pick up.
And right ahead, these runners are most likely going to heal up. This will be the last time that the fighter and thief see heals for a while, unless they drop the critical hit points. And right here we have the Pisco Demon fight, and it's largely handled in a similar way as the pirate fight. As you can see here, Bruce is only getting 2, and that could prove a little problematic as things go on. You typically want the experience from 3 or 4, especially if you're running Lust Black.
This fight can be very trolly. These Pisco Demons have a very high critical hit rate. Now, we have some fairly amazing armor for the point at which we are in the game right now on our characters, and most hits will only do 1 or 2 hit points of damage. Critical hits, however, ignore your armor, and more than once I've had my party wiped by just unlucky damage rolls to Pisco Demon. So it's always a battle that, you know, usually is going to go fine, but you get a little nervous about in a Uj Sigma actually got wiped in the tournament the first year when that happened.
Yeah, and those Pisco Demons hit hard to begin with, so those crits are vicious. That's why most of these runners will be healing right in front. They can typically absorb a critical hit or 2 at full hit points, but at the very low hit points, a lot of these runners aren't healing from level 1.
And Bruce coming up here on the Astos battle. Astos, his first turn, has a very high chance of casting Death. If he does, and it hits, which it doesn't always hit, you want it to hit either your thief or your warrior, preferably your warrior. But you really don't want to hit your mages, both because we're going to do some grinding later with the mages, and we want them to have as much experience as possible before that point. But also, it's nice during the grinding fight for them to be at the same level, because it's easier to keep track of how quickly they're leveling up at that point. And I missed! Okay, Bruce got very lucky there.
Yep, so that's a stroke of luck, and if everything goes well, it can hopefully be ended in 1 round, but as we're seeing, both flares are going to have to go off, and Rename is finding out that that kindly old king is actually Astos all along. So now Bruce has the Crystal Eye, and he's going to go run that to Matoya. Rename getting his thief killed by a death spell, it looks like.
So, Terralyn, as we start working away to more open world routing, you want to talk for a minute about why we went with the party lineup we did versus, say, the Final Fantasy I party lineup?
Well, for one thing, the Thief is vastly improved in this game over any of the other versions, with the exception of GBA. He hits a lot more often, and with the changeover to MP, he becomes a lot more useful in throwing things like hastes and tempers in the late game. Also, the fact that temper works now, although we won't be seeing it in this run. The other factor here is, for the earlier glitches, a lot of the items key off of hammers, and before class change, your fighter and your white mage can equip them, but your thief and your black mage cannot.
Yeah, the warrior is actually in the party pretty much just for item glitch early. If we could actually get some of these items that you use for the glitches on other characters, we would not be taking a warrior, but in fact be taking 2 thieves. Because with the item glitches and being able to put the most powerful weapon on any character we want, the thief actually is our main damage dealer. Because he has the highest speed, he gets the most hits in per turn.
Yes, and the advantage that the warrior sees in glitchless play does not come into play here because the thief and the warrior are both going to be equipping similar strength armors.
And for anybody unfamiliar with Final Fantasy I, speed works very differently than in some of the active time battles you may be used to from later games in the series. This is a strictly turn-based game, so every round, every monster, every character gets one turn. So higher speed stats on an attack will affect how many hits you get in on your turn. It's basically a multiplier. That also comes to play later with the spell Haste. Haste, instead of making you go faster, get turns more often, basically doubles your attack power for all intents and purposes.
Yeah, specifically it doubles your attack rate. If you were hitting 4 hits before, you're going to be hitting 8 hits after you get hit with a haste. It can also affect turn order in battles, although there's a slight random element there. But as these runners are building up speed via items, the chance of them going first and shutting the opponents out of turns, possibly entirely, is going to go up huge. And in fact, during the last fight in the game, unspeeding starts to take a role.
Bear with me 1 minute, my commentary stream has frozen.
Alright, mine just came back up. I was having the same issues.
Yeah, same here. Okay.
So we see Bruce blowing up the sea encounter, because at the moment it's still too hard to run from. Eventually you get to a point where you're just wasting time trying to run and you decide to cut your losses and sit through the flare animation.
Yeah, failing a run is extremely painful in this game, especially when you have 6, 8, 9 enemies. Because if all your party fails to run, that means every enemy gets a turn before you can even attempt to run again, and they may still get more turns before your run goes through. You go through a couple cycles of that, and you can lose a lot of time to one bad encounter. It's very frustrating. And the Sahagins are some of the early culprits to make that frustrating. Sahagins and wolves.
And Rename's fighter going down. That's kind of bad, but luckily that's what you buy Phoenix Downs for. Typically at this point in the game, you want to keep your fighter and thief between 20 and 70 hit points. That's why the thief is so low right now. Your mages you want to keep closer to full health.
So Bruce just got that mystic key we were talking about earlier. He's going to do an interesting little routing move here. He's most likely going to walk out the left side of the castle, even though his next goal is to the right. The reason is, it's quicker to leave the castle and re-enter than it is to walk across it. And he's going to come up here and get himself a Mithril Hammer. The Mithril Hammer will be used to do an item glitch to get our characters Thieves' Armlets. And you may notice here, those Thieves' Armlets aren't just going on the arm slot. They're going on all of the armor slots except for the shield. That's because the item glitch allows any armor to be equipped in any armor slot. And the reason we're not putting one on the shield slot is there are many items in the game that if you put in the shield slot and your character attempts to parry with them, no parry animation is programmed for that item and it causes a soft lock of the game. So for most of the game, we're going to be having those shield slots empty. But later on, we do have some items we can stick in there that fortunately have an animation associated with them for some reason, because they're not shields.
Yeah, typically that animation will be your weapon popping up and blocking the blow, like with certain post-game weapons in this game. So, Bruce is grabbing his nitro powder as Rename goes to get the key.
And
What's
Bruce is choosing not to get the dagger for the mage staff.
He also didn't pick up the gloves in Elfland Castle to turn into sage staffs, so it could be that this is a modified barbarian sword route we're seeing. Question from chat. Yes, most runners typically will be running emu in this. There are some that do console, but emulation is faster because you eliminate the load times. And even on console, you'll see people playing with the ISO ripped onto the system as opposed to playing with the UMD.
The UMD's load times are very, very slow. But without using the UMD, if you're using the ISO on the console, the only major speed difference is saving games takes a lot longer on console. I personally usually run on emulator, even though I do have the console modded to run the ISO, and I have a capture card simply because it's easier to set up for capture than having to worry about my capture card and XSplit and everything working together. It's just simpler for most people. Also, I personally like the controller more than the PSP itself. So Rename did get the Mithril knife there, so he will be getting himself the black garb later. I said mage's staff, I meant black garb. Black robes. Black robes.
Yeah, black garb comes off of the Mithril axe, which you get in Crescent.
Yes. Yeah, you get them both in the same item glitch menu. Just makes it confusing. Typically.
But yeah, if you want to see how bad the console loads can be in this, catch a Gyre stream when he's doing PSP version, because he plays on console with the UMD. And that is true, it does have the fast reset that way. Most of the handheld systems do.
So now this natural dam is blown apart, we can go out and get what is, for the Barbarian Sword, the most important menu of the game, and probably still the most important menu of the game for other routes as well.
Absolutely. The Lust Dagger route will be doing a lot of their item swapping here as well.
Those steel gloves can be transformed into the Barbarian Sword. The Barbarian Sword, it is hard to overstate how much more powerful this weapon is than any other weapon in the game. You know, some people say, well, why didn't you get Excalibur? This weapon is, between its actual damage properties and the strength bonus it gives, it ends up being about triple the strength of Excalibur. It is just ludicrously powerful weapon.
And it's only available in this version. It makes Excalibur look like a rapier.
So Bruce is into the Cavern of the Earth. The third floor of this is where the game starts getting a little scarier and a little more frustrating. It's where we can run into our first unrunnable encounter of the game. The Pisco Demons we fought earlier, will now be able to be found as a random encounter, and they still have a do not run flag on them as a random encounter. And the thing about unrunnable encounters in this game, unlike other games that it says cannot run, it just looks like you failed to run. So one of the hardest things for new runners of this game to learn is which battles you just can't run from, which are difficult to run from. But we also will run into, on that floor, the possibility of running into cockatrices, which are enemies that can petrify. And getting your entire party petrified will end the game for you.
And as we see, rename Glitch to Mage Staff, which is going to be very crucial in here. Also Glitch to a couple of Barbarian Swords.
So the Mage Staff is not as powerful as the Staff, but has a much faster animation and is very strong against undead enemies.
That's right, which is good against the Image fights, Image and Wraith. They're pretty damn fast, so even with these Thief Armlets, you're going to have a hard time running from them, and for insurance, it may be worth it to have your more powerful mage try to throw fire at them in the process.
And if you blinked, you just missed the power of the Barbarian Sword when, in one hit, the next boss was killed by Bruce. Looks like Rename got a little lost in there.
Yeah, the first few times the Earth Cave layout can be a little confusing.
So Bruce here is on Pisco Demons. He did recognize that he was, and he is using Judgment Staffs. It is very easy to automatically hit those shoulder buttons and try to run, and you can't take that back. Once you start trying to run, you're stuck with it, and it can be a huge time loss sometimes.
It can also be very annoying.
It's embarrassing every time, and the most experienced runner still does it fairly often.
You get like a second or so before the run command would trigger. So you have just enough time to calculate, is that runnable, is it not runnable, and then slap the shoulders down if it is, but sometimes you just mess up, sometimes you're too far into autopilot.
So we're going to be seeing these rooms a bunch. At this point, we had to go fight this vampire that Rename is fighting right now. He'll be killing in one hit. And getting an item called the Star Ruby. We need that to give to a kind of a rock golem creature who will then let us pass, get an item that will let us come back and open a door behind where that vampire was. So we see the first 3 floors of this Cavern of the Earth 3 times.
So Rename running into an unrunnable now as Bruce is about to get out of the cave. Runs into a couple Minotaurs on the way. Meantime, Rename running away from a quartet of Green Ogres. So Bruce is out and now he's going to head to the northwest to the Titan's Tunnel.
Rename has a big group of wights and ghast. Undead can be scary to fight because frequently they have associated with their attack, sometimes they will inflict paralysis on your character. While paralysis isn't lethal, if all 4 of your characters get paralyzed, you get, we call it being paralocked. They basically don't get to take turns, the enemy just keep attacking and attacking and attacking. You can lose minutes, or in an extreme case, even have your entire party just paralyzed and taking chip damage for minutes until they die. It is very, very frustrating and sometimes unavoidable on average.
And that's what makes the Wraith Image encounter even more dangerous. They also have this paralysis touch that can stun lock you, and they're fast. You could be trying to run, and still enough of them get a jump on you before your character gets the option to run away, and before you know it, it's 3 minutes later, and you're... I should reset! But I think it could be an option in the race setting like this.
I had it happen to me at one point. 3 games in a row got paralocked. And the last time I got paralocked twice, 2 counters in a row. 1 step encounter got paralocked again, and yeah, I was done that day.
They've ended a few runs for me also. So these warg wolves are. Ooh, that crit got through on Rename's fighter. They're tough to run from, even with the thief's arm once equipped.
Neat little speed tech you can do in this game. If you're using an item in the menu, there's an animation that associated with it. If you double tap that item, the animation is canceled. So if you're resurrecting a character, you try to use a Phoenix down on them twice, and you skip the reviving animation.
You gotta be careful in the early game not to do that with potions, though, especially on your warrior or your thief.
Absolutely.
Instead, you'll just use 2 of them, and you do not want your HP to get too high. We'll find out why in a few minutes.
Yeah, if ever my warrior or my thief gets poisoned, before I actually take the poison off, I check their hit points, see if I want them to take some damage. So Bruce is working his way back down in the Cavern of Earth. Now, it may look like he's got a sizable lead. It's not that much of a lead, honestly, considering the kind of shifts the game can experience in later dungeons.
All I could take is 1 bad encounter, 1 stun lock, 1 bad preemptive, or even with these super weapons, the early fiends are not gimmies.
Yeah. In fact, one of the scariest bosses in the game is going to be coming up in just a few minutes for Bruce here. It is one of the few, I think it's the only boss in the game that can just decide to kill you and there's nothing to do about it first turn.
Actually, I have died on Merilith before, too, in a similar circumstance.
She got me yesterday, but that was my fault.
But it's much more likely that the boss ahead does it. So Bruce playing with a little bit of fire here, leaving his fighter poisoned the whole time. And
So he's trying to put it off until his next menu.
It's possible, and he is triggering the rod here. In the NES version, you actually have to menu, and this one, all you have to do is talk to the plate.
That was a good preemptive for Bruce there.
And a bad ambush for Rename. 8 Wargwolves.
Whenever you get those ambushes, like, you just look away from the screen and just listen for hits and just sigh.
So now Bruce is on B5 and about to fight the first Fiend. Fiend to Earth, Lich.
Even when I'm grinding for PBs, I typically save for this battle. Because in this game, you can save anywhere, and he's actually doing a full heal. That's why I left the potion on for Warrior. That's interesting, in case he gets hit with a blizzard.
Yeah, a full HP Warrior could survive it, and he is poisoned, so the risks that normally apply to overhealing don't apply here.
That's actually... I like that strat.
Yeah,
but now,
use it if you got it.
Yeah. His thief is still a little high, though. He may need to walk on a few spike tiles in the Cavern of Ice.
So, on Bruce's side, we're about to see one of those unskippable cutscenes.
Yes, Sangri, that was a very fast boss battle. That is the power of the Barbarian Sword. In fact, the Barbarian Sword route, usually it is not until... frequently, it's the last two bosses in the game are the only ones you can't one-cycle. Same with the Lust Dagger route, but Lust Dagger has a little higher chance on a few of the battles taking more than one round, depending on your turn order and if you can cast haste in time.
But yeah, that Lich fight we saw from Bruce is typically what a runner wants to see. A couple hits going off early and Lich doesn't even get a chance to respond.
These shadows that Bruce is facing right now are interesting enemies. They can only be preemptive or ambushed fights. And 7 out of 8 times, it's preemptive. So generally we like shadows until we really don't.
If you're coming from the NES version, that can actually be a bit of a shock because it seems to be the reverse in that version. Most of the time you get ambushed.
Bruce is burning off the hit points off that warrior.
As Rename saves before fighting Lich. Smart move.
One thing that we all wish is what Bruce coming up on here, if we could do it early. If we did not have to defeat Lich before getting the item we get in this town, we would be able to save a lot of time in this game.
So, first he is stopping by the item shop to grab the armor shop to grab Mithril gloves, and he's going to be hitting the weapon shop to grab a Mithril axe.
And this is one of the more complicated menus of the game. So we'll be putting black garbs on 3 of his characters. Black garb, like the first armlet, gives you a little bit better running stats. You can more quickly, more easily run from battles, and typically get turn order a little faster. It's also swapping the warrior, or the mages, because only the warrior can convert the gloves into the Lust Dagger. The Lust Dagger is also a late-game item. It is high power for a dagger, is nowhere near the Barbarian Sword, but it makes the characters much, much faster, which for magic use in the route is very useful. Also helps in running from battles.
It is not something I'd want to be using against the fiends to attack, but for the upcoming grind for Bruce, it is very handy and still has enough power to one-shot what we're killing. And that black garb on the shield slot could be dangerous. Also, Bruce is not saved yet, so yeah, if there's a lockup here due to that garb getting triggered.
And that was on the white mage, wasn't it?
Uh-huh.
So, fortunately, odds are better with the white mage than it would be on, say, the thief. So, party order affects how often you get attacked in this game as well. The first party member up top will get attacked 50% of the time, second party member 25% of the time, and both of the mages, in this case, be attacked 12.5% of the time. So 1 in 8 attacks will statistically be going to the white mage. And if she tries to parry one of those 1 in 8 attacks, there is a chance of a soft lock. But he's taking a save right here at the Ice Cave. I'm very happy to see that for a variety of reasons. This can also be a very rough cavern. You can have lots of Pisco demons, and there are several enemies encounters here. The white dragons, the dark wizards, the mind flayers, who can very easily wipe out your entire party, and the cockatrices.
That is true, and undead are abound in here as well. Wraiths, images, specters. All of those can hard stun lock a group.
So, the Ice Cave, it can be rough. It is not our favorite place. This is an unrunnable encounter. Unfortunately, Bruce did try to run from this. It's okay that his warrior died here, actually. That's kind of a good thing. Actually, this might work out for him if he can wipe these.
Yeah, he can't run away from the group, but that judgment staff went first, and that may be all it takes. Nope. And almost soft lock there.
Alright, so Bruce is actually in a good spot now, as long as he doesn't soft lock, and I would recommend that he heals, but he now no longer has to worry about killing his warrior and thief in an upcoming battle.
Which saves a round and a little bit of time.
Now this is a scary spike encounter. Can get paralocked here pretty easily.
Especially with only 2, that is a danger of getting your warrior and thief killed off early.
Oh. Yeah, he's okay.
This is so nerve-wracking.
Oh no. That's the correct move there.
He really needs to heal here.
Yes. And rename is into the Cavern of Ice. I think it's gaining a little time here. Bruce got preemptive here. You can always run from a preemptive, even from a normally unrunnable encounter.
And here's our grind target, the Evil Eye. Now, luckily, that Lust Dagger gives the Black Mage enough speed that he should be on top of the battle order every time the fight happens. And it does just enough damage to one-shot the Eye, who is scary, not as scary as his NES counterpart, but fragile.
And we will be competing this battle until level 18. That is so the mages can learn some spells that we will need to use later in the run. There are some spells that you actually cannot do with items that we pick up.
Yeah, teleport cannot be done with an item at all, which is one of the vital spells in the rest of this run. The other is Hilara, which, while it is doable with an item, you typically cannot glitch that item in this run, and he has his mages up to level 18. All that extra time with Frontliners dead gave him a much better chance of pulling it off as he hits drop tile and into the ambush.
Now, we're going to be leaving the warrior dead for a while, just so that the other party members get a little more experience. This is mostly to hopefully get the hit point pools up a little higher on the thief and the black mage. Both of them can have some real trouble in the final battle with being one shot from full health from area attacks. So we try to get them a little more hit points by leaving the warrior dead for a while here.
Breathe a sigh of relief. The shield animation proc for the white mage in that battle before this one, but didn't lock the game up. We got lucky. Bruce is out, and with that Leva Stone, he is going to go get the airship and head to the next parts of the run. So, on rename screen, we're seeing that the thief is stoned, and that is just as good as death in this circumstance, because petrified characters don't pick up experience either.
Usually in this battle, we have to have our thief and our warrior at low hit points and hope that the evil eye casts Thundara. So we can spend several turns hitting the defend command, waiting for that. Fortunately, it was a little easier process this time.
Yeah, with the warrior already dead on both screens, the thief dying on Bruce's, and getting stoned, I'll presume by a cockatrice attack on renames. Thankfully, the grind in this run is shorter than the glitchless grind, at least. You have to go to a much higher level in that one because you'll be doing Healaga instead of Healara for your heal spell against Chaos. So now we have another cutscene. That one was not skippable, but this one is, the little cinematic.
And the airship in this game, I always thought was the trolliest of the Final Fantasy airships, simply because every spot you can go with it, you still have to park it really far away from your objective.
It always annoyed me when I was a kid. I mean, I learned the route where you pick up the floater Leva Stone before you head to the volcano or anything like that, so it was useful there. Then I had to head to the North World, and I'm like, what? Yeah, true. Level 33 is no issue in itself, but the eye grind spot is a precarious spot. I have more than one time fallen to the bottom floor before completing the grind. And with a level 33 grind, it is much faster to do it there. Well, not faster, but much more likely.
So, Lino pointing out that Bruce did not save before walking across the desert there. There is a risk there from an enemy called a sandworm that can party wipe you. I'll be honest, if I'm not in a marathon, I typically don't save there. I've never been wiped by it, but I've seen it happen to a lot of other people, and I've just been rolling the dice too much myself.
Yeah, I don't bother saving there in PB runs. I haven't lost a run there yet.
And we have both guaranteed that we will be losing runs the next week to the sandworm.
Speak for yourself, I'm going to remember to save, and Bruce trying to run from an unrunnable. The Minotaur zombie group is unrunnable.
And his thief is down again.
This could be bad for later in the game. You want your thief to be gaining levels here. There's an outside chance that depending on encounters, he could learn haste, which is helpful. But the concern is more for the HP levels, especially once you get real late in the game.
So, Bruce is about to come up on a spike tile in a minute. It's kind of unique encounter. Some encounters are technically runnable, but so difficult to run from that we treat them as unrunnable. And that's the case with these nightmares. They are very difficult to run from. So usually we just kill them. Later in the game, when we have a few more running items, we'll run across them. It's easier to get away.
Well, so far he's gotten hit with the shield thing active and had it proc and hasn't blocked yet. Could be playing with fire. Speaking of fire...
You may notice that fire did a little more damage than these physical attacks are doing. At this point in the game, while we have a lot of armor on, we don't really have much in the way of magic defense. And that's actually going to be our major issue at the end of the game with the final boss fight, is we are never very well equipped to deal with magic attacks throughout the run.
Yes, in these routes, the fighter is left dead for a while. All the way from at least the beginning of the eye grind until you are about ready to face the second fiend as Bruce is picking up what he came for, the rat's tail.
And this dragon zombie, if you fought no other battles, the dragon zombie and those nightmares together should get your mages to level 19, which is the threshold for the spells that they need to learn. But most people run the Lust Dagger strat. That's not as much of a concern because most do fight Merilith or going on to learn spells now.
Yeah, it's much more economical to wait until Merilith is done to go to get your level 4 and level 5 spells.
Just for a matter of map. And Remus, yes, a lot of people revive at Ice Cave, especially Barbarian Sword route. I saw a lot of people doing it, but recently a lot more people have been leaving the Warrior dead because there's no real benefit to having him alive until you reach Merilith.
And even for upcoming glitches, right now we're about to mitigate that. When the Thief class changes to Ninja, the equipment selection explodes upward. All the stuff you were counting on that Warrior to equip, Thief can equip it now.
Well, I believe you can also do the item glitches with the dead character in this game.
You can, true. But for some stuff, routing the item swap is much easier to do when you have two characters that can equip it, so you don't have to do formation swaps like you did in Crescent.
Absolutely. And frequently people will actually do one right here. I don't see much point in doing it right there, but some people might. He needs to be going from the weapon slot. He's going.
That's right.
There he goes. And this also fixes his problem. All right. Now the Lordly Robes are on the shield slot, and the Lordly Robes do not glitch.
Yeah, they are a known safe item to keep on the armor slot. On the shield slot, rather.
The Lordly Robes increase the magic power of the character. Our White Mage is going to be our super powerful wizard by the end of this run, just from all the items we'll be giving.
So Bruce is headed to the Caravan now. If you've ever played FF1 on NES, then you may be used to being able to land directly on the Caravan. That is a bug, and that has been patched out of all subsequent versions, including this one. So you have to park a little bit away and run, and you run the risk of running into this group, which is unrunnable. And I believe there's another unrunnable group that can also pop up in this area. So for the caravan, we're picking up a mandatory progression item, which is the fairy bottle. Also, he's selling off those knight armors here, so he can pick up some giant's tonic. We're not going to need those until the last fight in the game. And Rename is now making it out of the Citadel of Trials. So now Bruce is headed to Gaia to make a pit stop and pick up Oxyale on the way to the Volcano.
So Oxyale is an item that allows you to breathe underwater, which is important for a fiend we'll be visiting a little while in the Sunken Shrine. And I'll take a personal moment to say, as a licensed scuba instructor, I can say that drinking special oxygen-enriched beer is absolutely how we dive.
And this is a route divergence that came into being with the Lust Dagger route. Both of them use it, going from the caravan to Gaia to the Volcano.
Bruce accidentally walking back into town there. That's a rite of passage you should do at least once a run. Now, Bruce here is going to be aiming for the damage tile. Why is he doing that?
Two reasons. One, your threat does not increase as you go across these tiles, so you are no more likely to bring up an encounter. Two, encounters do not happen on these tiles.
Zero encounter visits to Mount Gold do happen. Well, yesterday I had a 10 encounter Mount Gold. I just had terrible luck with it. But generally, between 1 and 3 encounters is fairly typical.
Now, these Ogre Mages are tricky. That encounter we saw earlier on Bruce's screen with the... I'll just use the NES names because I'm unfamiliar with the ones for PSP.
It's Hellhound, by the way. Hellhounds.
Yeah, the Hellhound Ogre Mage, that's the one. It's unrunnable, but there's also a second encounter involving Ogre Mages, which is runnable.
So the one on the right screen right now is unrunnable.
And sometimes the second enemy that's supposed to be there, the Hellhound in this case, or the Hyena and Green Ogre in the other one, does not show up. So you have no way of knowing which encounter you're in. And this could be dicey. 4 Minotaurs and 1 hit point apiece. But yeah, typically when I see Ogre Mages in here on their own, I'll err on the side of caution and just blast them all down. So Bruce is picking up his warrior and his thief here, now his knight and his ninja. Headed down the lava pathway and about to reach Marilith.
Marilith does have a small chance of casting Fire of Faraga, which are fully healed shouldn't be a problem, but he spent so much time with his thief down. It might be best go ahead and safety save. Looks like he did. Otherwise, generally a fairly easy fiend fight. I have gotten very lucky before and killed her in one shot.
He is attacking with everyone, which does help the odds. With all the speed boosts from the Black Garb and the Lust Daggers, Marilith will usually go last. And that golden apple that dropped, that is a rare item. It isn't going to factor into the run at all, really. He may use it on the feed for Black Mage if their HP is a little low by endgame. Slater 138 with a question. Why did her name get changed from Carrie? More accurate translation, plus the fact that you had enough space to work with to actually fit the 8 characters required to write Merilith in this version and the GBA version and PS1 version also, I believe, as rename is kinda getting lost in
that's 2 wrong turns he took there, yeah. So, he needs to go right then down.
And this volcano can be daunting if you haven't run this game before. I would suggest to anyone looking to speedrun this, play it casually first. Figure out where everything is. Some of it can be confusing, especially like here in the volcano.
The volcano has a very samey look to it, so it's the same thing. But generally speaking, go down. When you get to these last couple of rooms that are kind of confusing.
Bruce grabbing haste on his Black Wizard. That's going to come in handy in the extreme late game. And now go on to Melman to pick up a couple more spells.
Getting Healara, which is fairly low strength, full party heal, but we will be putting some glitched items on there to make it very high strength. And also picking up Teleport. Teleport is a unique spell in this game. It is different than Exit, and Teleport and Exit are both in this game. Exit will take you from whatever dungeon or city or whatever you're in to the world map. Teleport will do that if you are only 1 level deep, but if you're multiple levels deep into a dungeon, it will take you to the previous floor. That's going to be very important in the Sunken Shrine.
Yeah, you're about to see why Teleport is superior to Exit in this run, even though you have to cast Teleport a smidge more often.
And Bruce has tried running twice now from an unrunnable encounter. So, hopefully he's going to catch on that he needs to attack these guys. There we go.
Rename is taking down the Merilith, and about to sit through some cutscenes.
So, remembering which battles are unrunnable is really one of the last skills you pick up in running Final Fantasy. It's, you just gotta memorize them. And especially with the ones that are weird enemy combinations, you can think something's unrunnable when it's not, or something is when it isn't. For instance, water elementals are always unrunnable unless there's a spirit naga with them. Then, in that one case, you can run from them. And you just have to learn these things. It's kind of the brute force memorization of the game for that gives most people trouble. Speaking of unrunnables, this here is one. This one, the gauntlet works pretty well on, but sometimes the prince does not die. So I like what Bruce is doing here, attacking the prince, then using the gauntlet to kill the chiefs.
So yeah, there is that discrepancy with the water elementals. It's not just whether or not the spirit naga's with them. It may not show up. It could be a 0-1 encounter, in which case your only cue is the visual cue where the water elemental is on the battlefield.
That's correct.
The good thing is, though, this is something you can learn by playing any version of the game. It doesn't have to be this one. Even though the names are different in NES or PS1, the unrunnable groups are the same.
As Porzath is pointing out, getting 3 Ogre Main Hellhound encounters in one run is pretty impressive. That's actually a fairly rare unrunnable. It's actually one of the common ones for people to accidentally try to run from because a lot of people just don't know about it.
Ooh, this ambush is pretty bad, but it could be a lot worse. At least you can run from it once it's over.
Yep.
There's a couple of unrunnable groups on this floor.
Yeah, Sunken Shrine has a lot of them. Although this floor is nice because this floor has no encounters. It's also where you would go to save the mermaids, which we will not be doing on this run. We're just coming all the way to the top of the Sunken Shrine, the very top floor, to get the Rosetta Stone.
Otherwise known as the slab in the NES version, and this will be vital for getting into the last Fiend dungeon.
So going and using our ethers, giving MP to our mages. Go and heal up, and this is probably the only time that the black mage will need given magic. And here we're going to use teleport. As you can see, it just took us to the previous floor. We're going to use it one more time. And then we're going to go left where the dungeon forked earlier. That way we don't have to go all the way back out to the world map, back into the city, back through the first.
And Rename is run into another of the unrunnable encounters down here, the ghosts. Any encounter with these is unrunnable. And they have some of the highest attack in the game.
They are weak to the mage's staff, which he has, but since there's only two of them, decided just to attack, because even at that point, you're looking at similar time for the animation, but you add in the menuing time for setting up the mage's staff, attacking was the way to go.
And Bruce is about to pick up one more item for swapping. This will be the second to last major swap in the game. He's going to be picking up the Light Axe, which changes into the Survival Vest when it is swapped from weapon to armor. And picking it up from the right side, because the other two sides of the chest are trap tiles. You cannot do that in the NES version, though. You only have the option to pick it up from the left or the bottom. And either way will net you an encounter.
So this is another one of those complicated menus. On the old route, it was actually the most complicated menu in the game. Now there's some other complicated menu. But we're going to be getting survival vests on all of our characters, most likely. And we will also be getting some extra lordly robes on the white mage.
Actually, he didn't put an extra one there.
He did not.
One thing you want to make sure to do at this swap, if you're putting a second lordly robes on, do not put it on the armor slot.
Absolutely.
It has the regen effect, and that means between rounds, like you're seeing with the sea trolls on Brucemalis' screen, you'll gain a regen tick. That'll cost you time in every fight that lasts longer than one round. You don't want that.
Alright, so now we're just waiting to get... Both of them are having pretty rough Sunken Shrines with these unrunnable. They're getting a lot of them. This is a dungeon that can go very, very quickly, and then it can also go like this.
True, you have the Swaggin party mix there with the princes and the chiefs. You have those ghost encounters, you have the water elementals, and all of them actually have decent rates for showing up.
And Rename apparently did not know to go to the right side there, so having to deal with a spike tile, but it was a quick one.
Yeah, my future opponent, but, you know, I'm doing this for fun, so I don't mind letting a tip slip to a newer player if it helps them play better.
Oh, so the first two tournaments, I made it into the elimination phase. My group this year, I'm just in trouble. I'm up against Leno and Kib, so I do not expect them to go far in this tournament.
Yeah, my group It may be easy, it may not. I am not going to underestimate any opponent coming up. This is my first tournament, by the way, but that don't mean be gentle. I'm playing to win it, even though I'm playing for fun. So, going against Kraken, luckily we have all this bonus armor, but as we're seeing, the Lust Dagger did next to no damage.
So Bruce coming up against Kraken. I think pretty much everyone agrees Kraken is the easiest of the four fiends.
With the kind of absorb you have, the kind of defense you have in this run, yes. If you're running in one of the categories where you may not have good armor, especially if you're running this in FF1 randomizer, you can be really threatening.
So, with that Sunken Shrine, as rough as it was for Bruce, Rename made up a lot of time there.
So Bruce is headed to the Waterfall Cave now to pick up another progression item, and the one item needed for the last major swap. There will be one more minor swap before the last fight in the game.
So this is everybody's favorite cavern, because it has a very low encounter rate. I am also a liar. It can just feel like a slog sometimes getting through this cavern. There are very rarely unrunnables in here. There's a very low chance of getting, I believe, it's a green dragon.
And that's right. Typically it's only one of them, but one or four, you can't run.
Yep. I believe that's a 1 in 64 encounter.
Yeah, it is an extremely rare one.
Now, you see Bruce here, he's going to go and kill the Nightmares. Nightmares are very difficult to run from, and how effectively you run can change a lot from game to game. Because something else important to understand about Final Fantasy I is when you level up, you have some random rolls affecting your stats. So that can affect how well you run, and very importantly also for the end of the game, it can affect how many hit points you have.
That's right. Another reason the warriors are long is because most of the time their HP growth's always going to be high. With the thief, it's more of a crapshoot on whether to get a good level early or not.
And it can be very, very random. I was playing the other day, and I was fairly excited because my Black Mage at the end of the grind had like 200 hit points. And then at the end of the game, very, very end, he had 203. It was just very, very minor hit point times.
So now Bruce is getting ambushed by those Nightmares. That is another component of their high speed. They can ambush you a lot. So it looks like Rename is getting lost in here, and that is pretty easy to do for a newer runner. All the paths look pretty similar.
Yeah, the Waterfall Cavern, Mount Golg, the Cavern of Earth, and the Sunken Shrine all can be pretty hard for new runners. So this is a spike encounter that rarely can really get in trouble. So Bruce, when he had everyone run except for the Black Mage. The Black Mage was his emergency attacker.
Yeah, and this encounter can have multiple kinds of enemies. We saw on Bruce's screen it was cockatrices and pyralisks. On Renames, it had mummies and king mummies. Any of those four enemies can show up in that formation, and it'll usually be full. So we see here that he is glitching the ribbon into a Gigantax, and that is crucial because the item glitch uses the item if you have it in your inventory. If he would have just glitched directly and put a ribbon in the shield slot, he wouldn't have one to put in his other shield slots.
So, so item duplication requires that you glitch an item into a new item, and then glitch that new item back into the original item.
Yeah, it looks like Rename may have had a smoother menu, or may have just not done it. I'm not entirely sure. I'm having a hard time keeping track of both screens, but Rename does look to be ahead.
Yeah, Rename did appear to have just a smoother menu there overall, and he had a little better encounter luck the last couple dungeons. So, like we said earlier, you know, it looked like Bruce had a very large lead, and then just it disappeared. That's Final Fantasy.
And Rename now visiting the most wonderful place in the game, according to Gyre, for the last time in this run, so he can learn Lithuania.
Bruce seems to be a little lost on the world map. Airship routing can be very difficult in this game because you have very large sections like this that are just water. And if you get lost, it can be very easy to get even more lost.
Indeed. So Rename runs up to one of the Cardia Islands and flying west, and he's going to head to Lithuania. And it's going to be a bit of a hike.
So on this hike, there's a very high chance of running into these Minotaur zombies.
They're still unrunnable.
Still unrunnable. If you have the Mage's Staff, it can be fantastic for this section of the game, because it will one-shot them, and it's nice just to be able to mow through them. I do believe Rename picked up the leather shield earlier and has a Mage's Staff. But I do not believe Bruce did make one. And Mythical, I also cannot believe they dropped the name Zombol. Zombol was an amazing name.
Yeah. There were a lot of names that were just so creative because he only had so much space to work with in the NES version. That is one of them. Another is very rare but could be coming up in the next dungeon.
I think my favorite Final Fantasy creative naming is still PM Stalker for Night Stalker.
Rename picking up the chime that'll let him into Mirage Tower as Bruce is still working through a slog of zombies.
I'm using teleport yet again there. Teleport, you don't use it a whole lot, but use it all in the same kind of general 15-minute section of the game. So it gets used a lot for a brief period.
You don't use it much, but it still saves you 3 to 5 minutes over the course of the game.
Absolutely.
You don't have to walk out of these towns, and where you were using it in Sea Shrine, you don't have to deal with the chance of those unrunnables.
In other categories of this game, all bosses, we actually do not up a Black Maid. We instead use 2 ninjas, because ninjas at the levels they'll be getting in that run will learn haste. And so in that, we do have the White Mage learn exit instead of using teleport.
And Rename finding an interesting spot to park the ship. And these Allosauruses. In the NES version, they're Tyros, and in the randomizer community, there's a big drama over whether you should kill them or save them, but those Allosauruses look scary, so they need to die. The Hellhound encounters in here can be run from because they don't come with an Ogre Mage. In fact, the only unrunnable you have to worry about in Mirage Tower in these floors is a very rare Blue Dragon fight.
There is also one mandatory Blue Dragon fight, but which is most likely the reason the other Blue Dragons are unrunnable. A lot of your unrunnable encounters are encounters that are a spike tile forced encounter somewhere else in the game, and that flag is just set on that enemy always.
Yeah, the vampires these players are running into is an interesting exception. That's because the vampire formation in the Earth Cave is a different one. Ooh, running into a Blue Dragon here.
This is the mandatory Blue Dragon.
Yep, and luckily, down. And about to head into the Sky Castle.
So up here in the Flying Fortress, we have a Death Eye unrunnable encounter we can get. Otherwise, everything is runnable. It has air elementals, which can be difficult to run from, but they are generally considered the only elemental that is runnable, other than the weird stuff with the water elementals and the Spirit Naga.
So if you've played the NES version and haven't seen this one before, it is a vastly different motif. In the NES version, the Flying Fortress or Sky Castle is more of a space motif. Almost like it's a space station or something, but in this it's just up in the clouds. And yet they kept the robots. Let's get some blessed RNGs out. See if we can get a Warmech up here as Bruce is running along the Bridge of Destiny to Tiamat.
So Warmech is a very rare encounter here. I've only run across him twice myself in hundreds of runs. But if I do run across him, I will always fight him. First off, because I feel like I should. Secondly, he actually gives more experience than either enemy in the game, and getting those extra hit points is never a bad thing.
Absolutely. And one thing that does hinder Warmech showing up is the encounter rate on the Bridge of Destiny part. The final floor of Flying Fortress got heavily nerfed in this version.
So Tiamat, casting Thunderbolt there, that can be a very scary spell if you get to heal. And another mistake a lot of us make here is we've been using teleport a lot. We go into heal, go on autopilot, and teleport to the previous floor. Kind of a classic mistake we make. Now, I did not see rename heal.
Yeah, I was about to say, as much as you want to heal after these fights, especially if you take an AoE to the face, you gotta be careful. Fortunately, unlike the NES version, at least a crystal will be lit. If you were to do something like that in the NES version, you have to go all the way back and step on the platform to trigger the orb lighting.
So, rename gets through without a Thunderbolt. And Bruce is on the way to the Chaos Shrine. So this is the part where we start naming numbered chests. Isn't that how it usually works in this channel?
Something like that. I just know that it can make or break a run with all the unrunnables in there. Gotta go back where we started.
So, this little cutscene plays shows this guy opening this door over here. First time playing through the PSP version, you may think, oh, that's where I need to go. That is not where you need to go. That goes to a in-game super dungeon. You just go straight forward and talk to the pedestal here if you want to actually continue the game.
That is one thing that irks me, that is so confusing like that. At least with the other dungeons, they're off the beaten path a bit. They're not presented as mandatory. You might happen upon them, but you could back out. So these white dragons are runnable, but it is a fairly risky proposition, and you may feel better about beating them down. And if you get ambushed by them, they can even end runs.
I do like the accidental overkill there. Going on autopilot and hasting the warrior.
Yep, you got plenty of resources. All it's costing you is a little bit of a time, but it is a race, so... a couple seconds taken now will save you a minute later. And here's that green dragon unrunnable on Bruce's screen, and Rename running into a purple worm, which is also unrunnable.
They both made the same mistake at the same time there. I liked it. Accidentally hasting their warrior again.
Black Knights are runnable, but they can be annoying, especially as a 7 or 8 pack, as Bruce is hitting a trap tile and fighting the Death Eye.
And Chris, the joke we were talking about earlier, in the Link to the Past randomizer, when people are going into the final dungeon, people guess the chest number that will have the master key in it. So that's the joke that everyone's naming numbers for.
I have never played that. I need to one of these days. Anyway, Bruce's run is going to be invalid because he's going to skip the validation chests. Well, it ain't really invalid. It's another one of those jokes as he runs into an unrunnable again.
Yep. This is kind of a weird thing. You walk through that ladder and end up in an identical looking room to a different spot. First time I tried reading a map to the Chaos Shrine, I was very confused by that.
And Rename running into the same unrunnable, just with more Winter Wolves. Best thing you could do is flare or fire them down before the wolves pepper you down with those ice storms. Even Wit Ribbons they can hurt.
So you notice they using the White Mage to cast Flare there. The reason is the White Mage, with those lordly robes, is going to have higher damage on the casts, and regular Flare attack will usually not kill the Ice Gigas unless the White Mage casts it.
Both runners running into unrunnables again. Purple worms are always unrunnable. Dragon zombies are unrunnable in this encounter. There is one we may see later on the second to last floor that has vampire lords and zombie dragons. That one is runnable. So Rename now on the first basement, the floor of Earth. Looks like he's getting a pretty clean run. Almost. These Earth Medusas are runnable, at least.
So, Rename coming up on Lich 2. We're doing our favorite Mega Man imitation here, and we have to refight all the bosses.
Only these bosses have new tricks.
And Lich, once again, is kind of the crazy scary one. Lich can cast Flare, which, depending on how your character's health is looking, it might be powerful enough to just kill some characters outright from full health.
Or so even wipe the group.
Yep, so you need to make sure you heal before that, and on a race, I would save.
Definitely. There is no defense against Flare. Those ribbons you put on your shield slot, they don't do jack. I lost about a 3-minute PB to Lich nuke. It's bad.
Rename coming up on Merilith. So you basically have a floor for each of the 4 fiends here. Merilith's floor is typically going to be the easiest. It's a short floor. It's very rare to run across the fire elemental with the only unrunnable in it. She can cast Farag, as you can see there, but the party was able to tank it just fine.
Bruce is pretty dangerously low on hit points, but he is going to throw a Hilara. Whether it gets off in time is the question.
Good. Flare is the same as Nuke, yes.
Yeah, at the hit point level he was at, that would have wiped the group if there would have been a flare.
So, Rename working his way through the water floor. This is the one that basically determines whether or not you have a Chaos Shrine. It looks like Rename so far is having a very good... I'll typically get about 6 water elemental encounters. That was actually a spectacular water floor for Rename.
Kraken 2 is probably the least threatening of the Fiendry fights. He can hit hard, but you're armored hard. And his spell selection is not the greatest.
I think his most powerful spell is like Blizzara, which...
If you're not laughing at it at this point, you're playing the game wrong.
Yeah.
There's the water elementals.
That's all right. Here, where's the emote for Commentator's Curse? There we go. Had to get that in there.
And now Rename is up against Tiamat 2.
Now, on the Barbarian Sword route, this would actually be the first time we would typically see haste cast beyond this battle. Because this would be the first battle that you couldn't one cycle with 4 Barbarian Swords.
Bruce would have been served bet. Oh no, he's trying to run. Meantime, Tiamat 2 is going down, and we're about to head to the last floor. The only thing that is unrunnable on this floor, I believe, is purple worms and what would be iron golems in the NES version.
You get another curse for that one.
Yeah, the purple worms are sadly common. Fairly common. But the iron golems are extremely rare. You'll almost never see them. So, time for the chaos fight.
So we're going to be healing up everybody, getting ethers for the white mage, and doing our final item glitches. We're going to make sure that our warrior, our ninja, and our black mage all have a barbarian sword. Our white mage needs to have a golden staff, a ribbon, lordly robes, and nothing or clothes on the armor slot. We also should get a ribbon onto the black mage.
Yes, typically I'll put lordly robes on all 3 slots that are not the body armor, and I'll put a ribbon there, but that does require a glitch swap. You may or may not be comfy with it. As long as the ribbon's on your white mage somewhere, and you have something that does not boost agility on the clothing slot, you are trying to unspeed for this fight.
We very specifically want our white mage to go last every turn after chaos does damage. Every turn of this battle, the white mage will be casting Hilara. This battle is the entire reason she's in the party. As Chaos hits, and he hits hard with his magic. Especially if he gets into an early magic cycle, casting Blaze, Tsunami, and Cyclone early. Now, we also just put Giant's Tonics on our Ninja and our Black Mage. We picked those up earlier. Giant's Tonics, for the duration of one battle, increase your hit points by 200. That's simply because Chaos hits hard enough that from full health, some of his spells could one-shot the Ninja or the Black Mage. So we need to increase their hit point.
That's right. Bruce's hit points are a lot more manageable without Giant's Tonics. He may throw one on the Black Mage for safety, but the Ninja probably doesn't need one.
And the Black, in Bruce's situation, I probably would not use Giant's Tonics. It's like 250 and 300 are my thresholds. 250 on the Black Mage, 300 Ninja. And the battle's going swimmingly for rename. We're just having the Black Mage haste everyone but the White Mage. And then once they're all hasted, everyone but the White Mage is attacking every turn. Chaos got a large upgrade in Final Fantasy 1. The whole game is fairly easy in PSP until you get to Chaos with his new giant hit pool and heavier hitting.
Yeah, he has 20,000 hit points in this version, I believe.
Alright, here comes Tsunami. It is his second strongest attack and his second longest animation. And usually after he follows up with Cyclone, hopefully we'll kill him before then.
Mm-hmm. You know, he's got that barbarian sword on that Black Mage, because after hasting, he may as well be doing something. And rename is done.
GG for rename.
SRL time of 1 hour, 37 minutes, 6 seconds.
That's a pretty good race time for a fairly new runner, I believe. So it's gonna be a good time, and Bruce is finishing up right here. This actually ended up being a very close race. If anyone ever wants to take 10 minutes of their life to read about one paragraph of text, you can watch the end of this game.
It sure feels like that.
It's a very, very long, very, very slow movie here. Alright, looks like Chaos on his magic cycle. But as far enough from the battle now, I think Bruce has it in the bag. He's at just hold X or circle, depending on your orientation. You have the game set up at this point.
Here comes the Tsunami again. That's the one you really don't want to see.
Tsunami's bad. Cyclone is awful. So
yeah, picking up the characters and dropping them animation, that just takes forever, but in speedrun terms.
Alright, and Bruce also finishes the game, so good game, good game.
Mm-hmm. SRL time of 1:38:45.
And are you in the SRL, or either of them going to be coming in for an interview?
Let me find out.
Yes, as Lito points out, this scene is also skippable. So, you know, after time is up, you do have the option still to skip.
But at this point, the run's already technically over. You may as well catch your breather. Just waiting for them to get pulled into the chat room with us.
Right, now for anybody watching that has not played this game before, if you're looking for a good community and a very easy kind of beginner speedrun, I really can't recommend this game enough. This is probably the easiest to get into RPG speedrun I've ever tried.
GG to both our racers.
Well, thank you.
Congratulations. That race, it was a good race. It went back and forth a little bit toward the end there. For a while, Bruce had a pretty good lead, but after the Sunken Shrine, which didn't go particularly well for either of you, went a little better for Rename, managed to close the gap, and we were both in the item menu at the Waterfall Cavern at the same time. It was a menu race. It was great to watch.
Oh, really?
That's cool.
Yeah, it was rough in some places. That's Final Fantasy 1 for you.
Yeah.
It had been a bit since I last played. In a couple of my early dungeons, I made some missteps in the path you should take and went down some dead ends once or twice. But aside from that, I feel it wasn't too bad, aside from RNG. You know, what can you do about that?
Yeah, map navigation errors happen to all of us. And I think Bruce also had some trouble in the overworld with the airship, so, you know...
It did happen.
Yeah, everybody runs into those things, and it feels embarrassing every time, but we all do it.
I feel like they always happen even more in races, too.
Oh, absolutely. Race jitters, they make us awful.
Definitely.
All right.
It was pretty good. I don't know, I forgot some unrunnables in Chaos Shrine, and that really got me.
Charting the unrunnables is one of the hard parts of a run, but y'all still did pretty good.
Yeah, it was a great race. You both had great times.
Yeah, I'm glad it was as close as it was.
Yeah, I am too. I was really curious as I was running through where we were.
And seeing how far the game has come in the last couple of years with the runners, you know, 2 years ago, the tournament, you know, the winner was always, you know, the person who got like under 145. And now we're getting a lot of these more mid 130s and even sub 130 runs in these races now. It's really great to see the community improving strats and getting better.
Oh, yeah. I mean, what Forsyth and Double just released a strat like a couple months ago. They're still making new stuff for it. It's pretty cool.
I started learning this game recently. It was really interesting. Like, the day I started learning, a new guide had just come out, and I was talking to people, and then I heard that, like, another strat was coming out. Like, someone was going to release a new guide, like, 2 days after that. It's just really cool that there's, like you said, there's constantly work being done on this game and this route. It's always very active.
The last year has been really exciting. Like, the first two tournaments, there wasn't a lot of difference in the strats between 2 years. And then this year, there's so many different routes. It's really great to see the game still developing like it is.
Were we both running Lust, or were you doing Black Mage?
I was doing quasi-Lust. Sometimes I get too overwhelmed on what exact item to use in what battle, so I just always use Judgment Rod.
See, I kind of do the same thing, except for with gauntlets, man. Those Sahagens and gauntlets, you just need it.
Yeah, and yeah, when you first learn the items, you know, you can spend so much time in menus messing with it that you end up losing time to it. So until you really know what you're doing with them, it is best to stick with Judgment Staff. And I'm learning that route right now myself, and it's a lot of new to learn. But you guys did a great job. I think everyone in chat seemed to enjoy it a whole lot. And anything else you want to say about the race?
No, look forward to the next one. I think we'll have another one coming up soon, won't we?
Matter of fact, you're in it. It is tomorrow at 3 Eastern by the look of it.
Oh, yeah, that's the one with Box.
Yep.
That'll be an interesting race because Box and I actually on the leaderboard, he's only like 7 seconds ahead of my PB. And we're on the same team, so some rivalry maybe, I don't know.
But it should be fun to see. That is 3 p.m. Eastern tomorrow on Speed Gaming, the main one.
All right.
Well, that being said, I want to wish rename. Congratulations on your win, Bruce. Congratulations on an awesome race. It was a close race. It's great fun to watch. Want to thank Feasel and everyone else down at Feed Gaming for hosting us today. My name's Shinbreaker7, and make sure you go ahead and follow the runners. Follow Terralyn. And Terralyn, you have anything else you want to add?
Not much to add, only that tomorrow night I'm going to be racing. We don't know what speed gaming channel that's going to be on yet, but it will be on one of them. We'll probably know at the end of the 3 p.m. race.
Alrighty. Well, and that... No, if there's anything to say, I'd say without any further ado, let's go ahead and free the channel up. But thank everybody for watching tonight. It's a lot of fun putting this on for you. Make sure to subscribe to the channel, and have yourselves a wonderful evening.
Let's say le bon temps relais. Good night, y'all.